call to order compensation.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Lester Petracca. I am chairman of the Nassau County Interim Financial Authority's Employment and Compensation Committee. Today is July 25th, 7 o'clock, I guess. As chairman, I would like to call this meeting of the committee to order and welcome fellow members John Byrne, Chris Wright, and Anna Barsky. Each of these members has received a draft of the agenda items for this meeting. The first item on the agenda is the ratification of minutes of the committee meeting that was held on November 29th, 2016. Do I hear a motion?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the motion carried unanimously. The second item on the agenda is the resolution delegating the chairman of this committee the authority to grant raises to the staff not to exceed 1%. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I will offer Resolution 1730 that does just that. It authorizes you to issue raises to the staff in an amount of up to 1%. And we will make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let the record show that the motion carried unanimously.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned.
Okay, we would like now to call to order the July 25th, 2017 regular meeting of the Nassau County Interim Finance Authority. And the first item of the agenda would be the approval of the minutes of April 18th, 2017. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
modification, I think I was present at that meeting.
You are.
Yep.
Was it?
I was the fifth vote.
That's right.
Okay, the minutes will reflect.
You need the present nor absent. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
You need the present nor
I
absent.
think it's a friendly.
Right, I know. I was,
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a friendly amendment. I'll
Yeah.
move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries, minutes accepted. The next item on the agenda is the consideration of the county's request to extend the reimbursement period for general obligation bonds previously issued for the Nassau County College termination payments. And this is a request to extend the reimbursements related to those general obligation bonds, not to extend the general obligation bonds themselves.
I can
Jerry,
speak
you-
to it
you-
very
you-
briefly.
why don't you speak with
As you're
Chris?
aware, the community college approved a voluntary separation incentive agreement without proper funding. So they ultimately came to the county to ask the county if they could borrow $7.5 million on the behalf of the community college so that they could fund this separation incentive agreement. The county agreed and in October of 2015 issued $7.5 million worth of bonds. The condition we put on that issuance of bonds was that they had to be paid back by the county in 2 years. The college then came to us subsequently in January of 2016 and said, 2 years is too fast, we can't pay it back in 2 years, can we have 4 years? Because the college is in financial trouble. At that time, you extended the payback period to 4 years for the community college. Now the college has come to us again and would like to extend the reimbursement period through December 31st of 2026. And they claim that they have the same financial difficulties which make it impossible to speed up the repayment of this debt. I have Ina Resnick who's the chief financial officer, I guess, of the community college, if you'd like to ask her any questions, but the reasons behind their financial difficulties are outlined in your materials.
For you, actually, you could probably answer this question. So that ultimately makes it a 10-year bond when all is said and done?
Yes.
Or is it 11?
Yes.
It's 10 because they did it in the fall of 15 and borrowed the money in 16?
I assume they actually borrowed it in early
Basically the time they asked for it.
16. Yes, so it ends up being a 10-year payback period.
And the principal now is 7 million, 7.5?
I think they've been paying interest only, so it's probably still close to $7.5 million.
But the repayment period is in some rational. It's not a balloon at the end. It's now starts to be rateable. So it'll get paid down like a normal amortization table?
Well, the county will pay off the $7.5 million
Right.
in the normal course, and then they will charge
I'm speaking to the
community
college's
college
reimbursement.
on a flat debt service basis? Is that the agreement?
Yeah, it's not a balloon, but because the college's fiscal year is different, the college is on the August 31st fiscal year end, so it comes out that in that last year, 2020, our debt payment is really high.
Right.
Because you have a year's worth and then 4 months worth.
Yeah.
Right. And then this isn't being given without compensation, so there is a cost to the college for getting this extended term, which will inure to the benefit of the county. And can you describe how much that will be?
The county has told me that provided some backup, that on a net present value basis, they think they'll actually make $80,000 or thereabouts from this transaction, the county.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consideration of the county contract for the Nassau Healthcare Corporation. This is a contract regarding the replacement of the vendor in order to provide prison health care. Carl, do you want to?
Yes, thank you and good evening. From item number 3 on tonight's agenda, I call your attention to the proposed contract between Nassau County and Nassau University Medical Center, or NUMAC. It's a 2-year agreement valued at an estimated $42 million, where NUMAC proposes to become the healthcare provider at Nassau County Corrections Center. I mentioned that the value of the contract is estimated because the county is responsible for the cost of liability insurance related to the performance of this contract, in addition to the actual cost of providing health care. Healthcare costs at the jail are to be reconciled against the monthly payments of $1.5 million each on a quarterly basis, and the fee, which is the greater of $3 million per year, where 16.7% of actual costs is to be adjusted accordingly. Considering that insurance is an incremental cost and the actual cost of providing health care at the jail isn't currently known, we're recommending that an allowance of 10% or $2.1 million per contract year be approved in addition to the contract amount. The county has adjusted their projections to provide for this contract in future years and has executed budget transfers to accommodate its effect for the remainder of 2017. Those budget transfers were approved by the legislature earlier this month. The contract also provides for $12.26 million of capital improvements, which will be funded by separate capital funds that will require an additional borrowing by the legislature and by NIFA, approved additional borrowing by the Ledge and by NIFA. Additionally, NUMAC has requested that we be reminded that approval of the contract includes various terms that could have additional financial implications, including county indemnification for lawsuits that name NUMAC emanating from this contract. Can I answer any questions?
The hospital has agreed to those terms with respect to capping the reconciliation at a 10%.
They haven't agreed. This is an estimate. There's no knowing how much the cost is going to be, how much it's
I
not going
understand,
to
but I
be.
thought there was an agreement that they would cap the excesses at 10%.
There's no formal cap.
Then what's the purpose?
The 10% capping is just that the county would have to come back to NIFA for approval for any expenditures that in excess of the 10%.
I understand, but we would be under the gun at that point, wouldn't we? The hospital would have spent the money, and the county would have come back and said, we need your approval to pay for something the hospital spent already.
Well, we would be able to monitor it with the quarterly reconciliations, or the county would be able to monitor it with the quarterly reconciliations, and you could see what the trend would be, whether you're going to exceed that 10%, at which point you would have to look for an increase, or whether the 10% would be a reasonable allowance. But at this point in time, there's no knowing. There's no track record at all.
We thought this was an improvement on the existing terms whereby the legislature approved the contract uncapped.
So is it,
We're trying to put some controls in, but limited to 10%.
am I paraphrasing incorrectly by saying that you could probably only get 90 days worth of trouble? Or at least unknown trouble because of the quarterly reconciliation?
90 days of unknown trouble, because you would see the trending.
How timely is the expectation of the reconciliation? Is it sort of 90 days after the end of the court, or is there a timeliness built in terms of the cost reporting that we can expect?
Does the county know how quickly the reconciliation would be?
Just because of the lag, a lag in that could make it 6 months of trouble before you knew anything, or?
Chris, based on the experience I had at the county, you could probably say it's gonna take 6 months to a year,
Every
Can I
time.
speak?
every time.
Just fine tune this a little. This was approved by the county without an upper limit. We felt that you should have some control over the contract if costs started to ramp up.
Yeah.
So we put in 10% because that's the same threshold you used for change orders when they come back to you. The problem with the 10% is, to be very candid, we hadn't anticipated the fact that they may get a big lawsuit. So I would be misleading you to tell you that the 10% threshold by which they have to come back to you is included in what you're approving today. It's possible that they may get a big lawsuit, which could end up being 100% of the value of the contract. So they're not going to come back to you on that. And I think they rightfully want you to know that. But that is no different than what the county approved. It's just not made explicit in your board meeting.
Jeremy, I understand that. My concern was not based on lawsuits, which we have less control over, and certainly, you know what the tail can be on these lawsuits. It could be years, so we wouldn't really know. But on the cost of services,
This
because...
is cost of services. Please
let me finish. With respect to the cost of services, this is different than a change order. When the county comes to us with a change order because it exceeds a 10% threshold, they haven't expended the money yet. In this particular case, the money has been expended by the county's vendor, which is NUMEC, and expended theoretically on the health care of the inmates, which was required, that they felt was required for them to render. The opportunity for the county or for NIFA to say, no, you can't do that, means you're going to have to say we're going to cut back on the health care that's being offered somehow, which, as we know, based on this contract, is very difficult to do.
Or could we force the county to make other cuts elsewhere in its budget to be able to pay that bill?
Well, we could, of course, force the county to make other cuts in their budget, but
It's got to be zero sum.
this has not been all thought through. I'm not going to lie to you, but what we're hoping is we will monitor the contract, that the county will monitor the contract, that the hospital will constantly keep the county aware of their costs, especially if they're large incremental costs. And if they see themselves approaching something which would be large enough to be 10% of the contract, they will come to us in advance. I mean, to be honest with you, the 10% came out of my head. It wasn't in there before, but I thought it was a proper savings.
I'm not challenging the number itself, the 10%, whether it was 10 or 15 or 20.
Yeah,
I still have the same concerns.
It seemed like a reasonable amount.
Is there any way we could amend our approval of this, indicating that we reserve the right to require the county to offset this against their budget, should it exceed the budgeted amount?
Well, it's incumbent upon the county to make whatever adjustments in their budget is necessary
Right,
to
just-
accommodate any cost overrun.
So just like they've done here, right, this contract is gonna cost more than armor. So they went to the legislature and they asked for additional appropriations to cover the additional costs of the new contract. They would have to do this.
But they offset, my understanding is they offset that with areas where they expected to exceed the budget on a positive basis. They didn't actually make any cuts in the budget.
Well,
Is that correct?
for
Am
the
I
bus
correct?
restoration,
No, for this, for
this particular contract.
For the new map,
For the rest of 2017,
yeah.
no, there were no cuts.
they used overages and.
They used projected,
Right.
But they
Favorable
identified
variances.
resources to be used within the budget to provide for it.
John Mayer from the hospital is here. Perhaps he can give you at least an oral opinion to somehow communicate with us if they feel their costs.
Well, and just not to jump on what Howard was saying either, I think my concern is less about the hospital's reporting, if that would get in a regular pace, and more about the county's understanding, which may just be implied by the fact that it's a NIFA contract and they have a multi-year plan within which to live, that they would need to take offsetting action if there is an over-budget scenario. They don't have a choice. They have to provide health care to the inmates. That's the given.
That's with any contract, it's an
required by law.
obligation.
But the county also has to live within its means, and therefore, if you go 20 million over, they'd have to cut 20 million somewhere else to pay their bills as part of the $3 billion budget.
They're gonna have to do that in regard.
Or they run a deficit.
Is that or they're on a deficit, in which case we don't get out of control period for what would then be the 10th year, right? So the challenge, my view anyway, is that, and maybe Howard, you'd feel better if we at least said it on the record or built into the resolution, but by definition, any county contract we approve that goes over requires the county to make an offsetting cut, else be out of the NYP, right? I mean, as long as we're willing to hold fast to the multi-year plan.
Howard, you know, as controllable, I assume they have the obligation to pay their debts.
Well, again, the county has run deficits in the past, which means
Right.
that they've carried over their debts.
And I'm okay if we made it explicit in the resolution or just noted for the record that that's how it works, or should work.
I mean, if we do it here, we really should be doing it in every resolution of this type that we encounter.
Or not do it, because that's
Or not
implied
do it,
in all of
right.
our
It's
other
implied.
resolutions.
Well, this is a
my
little
point.
bit, this is a little bit different in that the vendor is going to incur these costs whether or not they get approved. They're incurred because they're necessary for the health care of the inmates.
Right.
So it's not like there's a choice involved and we can cut back the service. That's not going to happen.
I don't
Well,
think it's.
there are
really
other
service.
I
contracts.
still think it's implied.
It was a practical matter, there were other contracts. that were
It's so implied,
that as
they have to, it's like, you know, paying for unexpected snowfall. I mean, you're gonna have to make it up in the budget.
It's implied.
There are other contracts that are analogous to this, social service caseload-driven contracts where estimates are made and, you know, it can happen if caseload's higher, caseload's lower. So it's a best guesstimate of where
Mr.
the county
Chairman.
expects.
I would be satisfied if we could memorialize this conversation in the minutes, so it would be clear what the intent of the board was.
Sure.
I'm with you on that. I think that's
I
fair.
think
I
we're all
think
in
we've discussed it
agreement.
enough that it
Yeah, I
We're all in
probably will make it.
agreement.
Right, and the memorialization would be that additional costs over and above the 10% cap would require the county to take offsetting action, either from a revenue increase or an expense cutting.
And because the 10% is in there, they would be obligated to.
You know how to write that in the minutes? Got it?
Not in the minutes, it's just in the minutes.
No, it's in the
It's
minutes.
in the
It's in the
minutes.
minutes.
To clarify everybody else.
With that understanding, I'll move the resolution.
well. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
That was a good point.
And
Good point, Howard.
that be there, if there's no other business, I would
We're gonna go
I would
into
look
executive
to
session.
pursuant to Section 105 Subdivision 1E of the New York State Open Meetings Law, and I would like to request a motion for an executive session to discuss the county's recent efforts in the area of collective bargaining and negotiation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Oh, cool.
I get to catch up.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Where do you live in this city?
I'm on White Plains?
My son lives in
Wait a second, we're gonna do our name tags away.
Okay.
Mailing address is Bronxville.
What's that?
Wait a second, one is on them, name
Yeah.
tags away. There's a hint there.
Well, we have two loyal fans.
Yeah, I know, I didn't even
Yes,
know.
at least somebody wants to hear something we have to say.
Just can't get enough.
Sorry for the rain delay.
Right.
If we're not gonna conduct any business.
Right, okay.
He's ready to go?
Okay, so we're back out of executive session, and just want to say for the minutes that there was no official action taken by the board in executive session. There was just general discussion, and if there's no other further new business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay?
All right, guys, have a bit of a great night.
You too.
Bless you, thank you.